In emergencies, you have to act fast. When someone goes into cardiac arrest, you perform chest compressions to keep their brain oxygenated until help arrives to defibrillate their heart and restore its rhythm. You stop the bleeding before worrying about a broken bone. I sat on the terrace, clueless about what to do first. This was uncharted territory for me, and I felt blindsided. As an intensive care nurse, I've honed my observation skills. I could spot subtle signs of a patient's decline and act swiftly, often saving lives. Yet, I completely missed the warning signs of my nearly 18-year marriage unraveling. I had no intention of saving it. I wanted to end it painfully. After some thought, I decided against letting innocent people get hurt while I targeted my cheating wife and her lover. Taking a sip of beer, I weighed my options, glancing around my backyard. The lawn stretched from the terrace to a small inlet lined with reeds and sparse trees. My house, a craftsman-style home with modern updates, was a gift from my parents when I got engaged. The land had been in the family for generations, and the house was built by my uncle's construction company. I chose nursing over joining the family business. Despite my father's initial disappointment, I could afford some luxuries, a fishing boat, decent gear, and family vacations when I could manage them. Family was my priority, and now their happiness was at risk. I looked next door at my sister's matching house. I called her over. We needed to talk. "Isn't it a bit early for a drink, Ben?" "It's only 2 p.m., she said, noticing my beer. "I'm off for the weekend and in the mood," I replied. She knew my work schedule allowed me frequent days off, and I liked keeping a cooler of beer nearby to avoid trips to the fridge. I offered her a drink, and she sat down. "So, what's so urgent, Emma?" I asked. "You told me not to call anyone before talking to you," she replied. "I found out Carla is cheating on me," I said, my voice trembling. "Are you sure?" "Maybe it's some cruel joke," she asked. I nodded. "There was a video attached." "No doubt about it." "Who sent it?" "I don't know," I replied. "The email said, you should know your wife is cheating. Here's proof." The sender's name was, Pissed Off 999. Emma was furious. "That lying snake. Doesn't she realize you could destroy her and her lover? Do you know who the guy is?" I nodded, ready to respond, but she cut me off. "If Tom ever cheated on me, I'd destroy him. How does Carla even have time to have an affair? She's home most nights, except for the occasional girls' night where I'm usually there. She works with Tom, and they carpool. He'd notice if she were sneaking around." Emma paused, noticing my shocked expression. "No. No way," she whispered. "She's cheating with my husband." Her face turned red, and tears welled up. "I'm sorry. I wanted to tell you gently," I said, hugging her. "I've had a couple of hours to calm down. Enough not to grab a weapon." She cried briefly but composed herself. "Okay, what do we do? Wait for them and confront them?" she asked. "I love him, but I'm not tolerating this." "We need to be smart," I said. "Act normal tonight, just like yesterday. We'll greet them with a kiss." Emma frowned. "Are you serious? We need a plan. We'll get legal advice tomorrow. At least we know we haven't contracted any STDs, I added with a smirk, trying to lighten the mood. Emma pointed at me. "Hell no, I didn't even think about that." She shook her head. "You know me, I joke about getting revenge, but I'd never actually go through with it." She finished her beer and tossed the can. I handed her another. "And for the record," she added, "I'm not doing anything with Tom. I just got my period." She laughed. "This will last until we confront those cheaters. He's not getting anything from me. Carla can have him. And we mustn't let the kids know yet," I warned. They'd left that morning for our parents' place. My son Alex, 17, my younger son Liam, 16, Emma's twins, Anna and Ryan, 16, and my daughter Maya, also 16. They'd spent so much time together growing up that they were more like siblings, especially during the pandemic. Tom had been a good father and uncle, actively involved in the kids' education and activities. I handled the outdoor fun, teaching them camping, fishing, and hunting. We started with backyard campouts and eventually ventured into more remote areas. As the kids got older, they joined us on fishing trips, often with Tom driving a second boat. Lately, though, Tom had been staying behind, letting his sons handle the boat instead. The kids learned self-reliance, finding food on trips and working as a team. 3 weeks ago, I rearranged my work schedule to get 6 days off in a row. I took the girls in one boat while the boys took the other. We traveled cautiously, avoiding snags and shallow water, stopping occasionally so everyone could take turns driving. We spent a week at the old Lakewood fish camp, fishing and catching crabs. We bonded as a family, or so I thought. Apparently, Carla and Tom didn't value family unity. The idea of telling the kids about Carla and Tom's affair was gut-wrenching. Family meant everything to me, and destroying that unity felt unforgivable. I shared this with Emma. We can't hide it from them forever, she said, but we can delay it for a bit. I'll make sure they don't sense anything is wrong. What do we do next? I can't forgive or forget infidelity, no matter what Carla says, I replied. Emma nodded. I can tolerate a lot, but not cheating. I need to figure out how to get rid of him without losing everything. I won't risk jail or let him take the kids. I have to be there for them. I opened another beer. I get it, she said. We need to break him financially. I'm going to take every penny I can get, child support, alimony, everything. I agreed. Tom earned more, so Emma had a better chance. Carla, on the other hand, could drag me into court, as divorce proceedings often favor women. In my job, I handle trusts and wills, Emma said. I know enough about the law to say our assets are protected. Our houses are safe. Dad gave them to us before we married, so Carla and Tom can't claim them. Carla might try to stay in your house until the kids are grown, but she can't claim it outright. Didn't you and Carla sign a prenup? Dad insisted, I said. It states if either party cheats, they only get 20% of joint assets and no alimony. Carla's father, a wealthy plastic surgeon, demanded it when I got her pregnant. He was terrified I'd take half his fortune. Dad made you and Tom sign something similar, right? Emma nodded. I'm worried about that video, though, she said. Who filmed it, and how? There were at least 3 cameras, I replied. The video I received showed the same event from different angles. It didn't look edited. Neither Tom nor Carla seemed aware they were being recorded. Show me, Emma demanded. I handed her my tablet. Holy crap, she exclaimed. Tom and Carla's comments in the video about how clueless we were infuriated her. Tom is done, she said. But we need to figure out who made the video. I don't want it to come back and haunt us. I don't care if the world sees it, I said. As long as it doesn't hurt us. Emma sat silently, lost in thought, before breaking into tears. I hugged her, and we both cried, unable to hold back the pain any longer. That evening, I met Carla at the door with a hug and kiss. I half expected her to pull away, but she kissed me back. I couldn't detect any trace of aftershave, just her perfume. Despite my anger, I told her dinner was ready. Emma and I had already planned to order takeout. Neither of us had the energy to cook. We joked about poisoning our spouses, but it was just a way to vent. Violence was not an option. The next morning, I watched Carla climb into Tom's car. I called Emma. How'd it go? No problem, she replied. Joking and planning helped me keep my cool. Any idea where they're going tonight? Emma, always a bit of a loose cannon, needed to vent. We agreed to be honest about our feelings. At 10 a.m., we sat in the office of one of Emma's bosses, Jake, a divorce attorney and an old friend. He had agreed to represent us. "Are you sure you have a video showing both parties?" he asked. We nodded but decided not to show it yet. "As long as you have evidence of infidelity, you're in a good position. Your prenuptial agreements are strict." "Ben, did you consult a lawyer before signing?" I explained that my father had insisted on a legal review. Emma confirmed she'd used the same lawyer. Jake continued. "The cheater gets only 20% of joint assets, including savings and investments. There are no provisions for personal income accounts. Do either of you have any hidden income?" We shook our heads. "What if Carla has money she hasn't told me about?" I asked. "Still common property," Jake replied. "The same applies if you've made any unreported purchases, like home improvements. Your homes are protected because they were gifts before marriage. But things like solar panels might be considered shared property. So she gets 20% because she cheated, right?" I asked. Jake nodded. "Correct. You can negotiate the division of furniture and other items. She'll have to pay for transport and storage if she wants anything." Jake grinned. "These are the games we'll play. The important thing is your ironclad prenups, as long as you prove infidelity. Keep those video copies hidden and confidential. If they sue over the video being public, it depends on how it was obtained. Be cautious." Emma and I nodded, determined to stay one step ahead. We had briefly considered editing the videos and sharing them with close friends and family but decided against it, concerned about the impact on the kids. Instead, we were determined to find out who had filmed the footage. We planned to serve the divorce papers on Thursday at noon, but I suggested waiting until Friday afternoon so Carla and Tom would have to stew over the weekend without access to legal advice. Jake convinced us to stick with Thursday, arguing that it would save costs and still tie them up with paperwork all weekend, likely increasing their legal fees. Initially, we wanted to serve them in person to see their reactions, but Jake advised against it. Instead, we decided to serve the papers at their workplace in front of their colleagues. After leaving Jake's office, Emma and I went to the bank to transfer money into new accounts in our names only. We ensured we had statements for all accounts and paid off and canceled joint credit cards, opening new ones under our names alone. While waiting in line, I checked my email and found 3 more videos of Carla and Tom. I replied to the sender, thanking them and asking how they'd obtained the footage while expressing concern about it going public. Secretly, I wished it would be released, but I knew we had to tread carefully to avoid a lawsuit. An hour later, another email arrived with an address, 9203, Victoria Street, apartment 201. Curious, I visited the location. Using a bit of charm and a hint of suspicion about criminal activities, I convinced the receptionist to share information. She revealed that the apartment was rented by the insurance company where Carla and Tom worked, with Tom's signature on the lease. I wondered how the company would react if they found out they were financing Tom's affair. At 12:30, Carla called me, furious about the divorce papers. "What the hell is this, Ben?" she yelled. Calmly, I replied, "I know you found someone else, and I'm setting you free." We'd rehearsed our responses. Carla denied everything, accusing me of believing rumors and threatening to take everything in the divorce, custody of the kids, child support, and half our assets. She even suggested that Tom could move into my house while I lived with Emma. Imagining the two of them in my home fueled my rage. "Go ahead. Get yourself a lawyer," I said, barely keeping my voice steady. Beneath my calm exterior, I wrestled with regret over my marriage's failure and fury at Carla's stubborn denial. I hope Emma hasn't revealed too much to Tom, I thought to myself. By the way, I added, the girls are packing your things, and Emma told the boys to pack Tom's. Everything will be in front of the house for you to pick up this afternoon. We got a restraining order and changed the locks this morning. You'll need to find another place to stay until the court decides. Carla began yelling, but I hung up. 10 minutes later, Emma texted, "Backyard. Bring your cooler. Make sure it's full." "That fool Tom," she began, sipping her beer when I joined her. "He tried to blame this on office gossip, said some secretary was spreading rumors. I told him Carla did the same. He denied everything, of course, and said we shouldn't believe it. I told him to call first if he wanted his things because I have a loaded weapon." Jake arrived soon after with 2 sheriff's deputies to ensure things didn't get out of hand. I realized how smart it was to have them present. Tom might provoke me, and I didn't want to risk assault charges. "I'm glad you talked to the kids earlier," Emma said. "I couldn't have done it without breaking down." We had gathered the kids and explained the situation. To our surprise, they had suspected something was wrong and quietly began packing Carla's and Tom's belongings. "The kids took it better than I expected," Emma said. "Maybe they're in shock or just don't fully grasp what's happening yet." My phone beeped with an email. "Think it's from Pissed Off 999. I said. "Check it," Emma urged. I opened the email, which contained an audio file. We listened intently. "Can you believe Ben and Emma served us?" Carla's voice said. "They must have found out somehow. I can't believe this. Just last night, Ben was so affectionate." "Relax," Tom replied. "They don't know anything. Someone must have gossiped about us having lunch or driving together. Deny everything. If they go through with this divorce, we'll make them pay. I know a lawyer who can help. Just don't admit anything, act like everything you say is being recorded." After the recording ended, Emma and I sat in silence. "Let them think we're clueless," I said. "Tom mentioned they've been planning something for a while. We need to make sure we're protected if they try anything illegal." Emma nodded, tears in her eyes. "We have to hold firm." "I know," she said quietly. "Jake said I'm in a better position, courts favor women, but I can't accept Carla getting custody of Alex and Maya and living in your house rent-free until Maya turns 18. Even with the prenup, it's disgusting." I felt the same way but hugged Emma as she cried. "We'll get through this," I assured her, though I wasn't entirely convinced myself. Divorce is about minimizing losses. The children were silent as Emma and I entered the house. Maya and Anna were packing Carla's clothes into suitcases and bags, though they had resorted to using plastic garbage bags as well. I asked them to take pictures of the packed items, planning to deduct their value from Carla's share of the assets. Next door, Alex and Ryan were nearly finished. Tom had fewer belongings, and the boys were stuffing his clothes into bags without bothering to fold them. I couldn't help but smile as Alex crammed one of Tom's expensive $2,000 suits into a wrinkled heap. They were on my side, and I appreciated their loyalty. Carla sent me a furious text, and I immediately called Jake, who arrived with 2 sheriff's deputies in tow. "Relax and enjoy," Jake said with a reassuring smile. Carla and Tom pulled up with an unwelcome face, Boudreaux Landry, an old schoolyard bully from my childhood. "Hey, Ben," Boudreaux sneered. "Heard you're having some issues with your wife and brother-in-law. No big deal. If I'd had a weapon, I might have been tempted to use it." Boudreaux was massive, and a physical confrontation wasn't an option. "Hey, Boudreaux," I said evenly. "We're just working through it. You don't actually believe my boy Tom is messing around with your wife, do you?" Boudreaux asked, smirking. "That's the story," I replied curtly. Jake stepped closer to me, silently urging restraint. "Carla accused me of draining our joint bank account." "Yes," I admitted, "and I have statements showing the original balances. You'll get what you're owed." She had yet to realize her credit card no longer worked. Emma and I didn't accompany Carla and Tom inside. Maya and Anna followed Carla and a deputy to keep an eye on things, while Alex and Ryan shadowed Tom. "Where's my jewelry?" Carla demanded. This had been a major point of contention. Over the years, I'd purchased high-quality jewelry for her, totaling at least $25,000. Most of it was secured in my safe. I'd taken photographs of the pieces for insurance purposes, wanting proof of ownership in case of disputes. Boudreaux started to argue, but I cut him off by explaining the pictures were to prevent the jewelry from disappearing. Jake intervened, suggesting a new appraisal of all assets. After a brief, whispered exchange with Boudreaux, Carla reluctantly removed her jewelry and handed it to me. "Where am I supposed to go, you jerk?" Carla spat. I almost suggested her love nest on Victoria Street but held back. Shrugging, I realized my emotions toward her had shifted completely. Just days ago, I'd loved this woman. Now, all I felt was anger and indifference. Carla and Tom finally left, with Boudreaux following closely behind. I suspected they were heading to the apartment. Jake grinned. "I hope so. We've got someone following them. If the apartment comes up now, it'll strengthen our negotiations." Instead, they checked into a Holiday Inn near their office. I helped them move their things inside with an unbothered cheerfulness. Later that evening, while Emma and the girls prepared dinner, my phone beeped with another email. Emma followed me to the computer. "Okay, guys," came Boudreaux's familiar voice. "Someone's probably tailing Ben. Stay at a motel and get a room with 2 beds. Make sure both beds look used. The investigator can bribe the maid to check. We'll say you're just sharing a room to save money." "It was embarrassing when my card got declined," Tom said. "Good thing I took extra cash." "What's next?" "I'll call the credit card company to open a new account," Carla replied. "Ben's probably inventoried the jewelry," Boudreaux added. "He might even have a list. Protect any hidden assets. Technically, they're community property, but what Ben and Emma don't know about, they can't claim. Don't stash too much, though. If you get caught, it'll hurt your case. Offshore accounts are better. We can fly to the Cayman Islands and open an account there," Tom said eagerly. "Make the room look used," Boudreaux continued. "Wet the tissues, ruffle the towels, wet the shower, and use some shampoo. I'll call the office and say we're out tomorrow." The audio ended. "Do they have secret accounts?" Emma asked with a sigh. "I don't know," I admitted. "Carla and I only got $50 weekly for travel cash, and we reviewed the credit card statements monthly. I bluffed earlier about Rich being into pills and escorts. But now, I'm not so sure." We decided to leave the matter for the night and joined the kids for dinner. There wasn't much we could do about hidden bank accounts right then. The next morning, I drove to Jake's office, having arranged for a jewelry appraisal and a firearms estimate from a local dealer. Emma went into work briefly before meeting me there. In Jake's office, I played the audio files from the night before. "I'd like to know who's sending these," Jake said, frowning. "How they managed to bug Carla and Tom at the hotel is beyond me. A private investigator couldn't have moved that fast. We might need a court order to uncover their bank balances," he added. "That might mean hiring an investigator." Emma and I shook our heads when Jake asked if we had noticed any missing money. "If you want this divorce resolved quickly, like you said, we'll need to move fast," Jake advised. "Next week, we'll meet with Carla, Tom, and their lawyer to list assets, then go before a judge. Louisiana's Napoleonic laws make divorce more straightforward, especially when there's proof of infidelity. Counseling won't be required. Once the judge rules, you'll wait 6 months, and it's finalized." Jake smirked as he continued, "Boudreaux called earlier, demanding that you release an extra 30% of the funds you withdrew. I reminded him the prenup states the cheater only gets 20% of joint assets. He sputtered and demanded proof of infidelity. I told him that would come out in court. Watching him squirm was pretty satisfying. It'd be even better to get audio of him advising Carla and Tom to hide money offshore and play it in court. That weekend, I was scheduled to work, but the head nurse, Sharon, couldn't cover my shifts. What if I start coughing and need a COVID test? I joked. Idiot, Sharon replied affectionately. Yes, I'll cover for you. You have vacation and sick days saved up. If you need an emergency vacation, take it. Thank you. How about I work this weekend and start my vacation on Monday? Really? Thank you. I owe you one, Sharon said. I'll file your sick leave, then vacation. Take all the time you need and keep me updated. Work was a welcome distraction. Weekends in the ICU were always busy, and the constant demands kept me sharp. I was surprised to see Carla's father, Dr. Prejean, waiting for me at the nurse's station. Hello, Dr. Prejean. What brings you to the ICU? I greeted him politely, aware that my co-workers were curious about his sudden appearance. Cut the crap. Let's talk, he hissed. We stepped into the head nurse's office. What's this about you kicking Carla out? He demanded. She called her mother in tears. John, I found out Carla is having an affair, I said bluntly. She's cheating on me with my sister's husband. I'm dealing with a family crisis. It's just a rumor started by office gossip, John insisted. They commute together and have lunch sometimes, that's all. Carla told us the same thing about the earlier rumors involving her boss. I decided to be honest with him despite our complicated history. I haven't told anyone except my lawyer and Emma. I haven't even told Carla and Tom everything I know, let alone the kids, I said, trying to control my emotions. I have proof. Video and audio recordings. This isn't just a rumor. Dr. Prejean looked stunned. What are you going to do? He asked softly, though he already seemed to know. What can I do? I replied. I'm trying to protect Alex and Maya, but I can't ignore this. John, what would you do if Carla had proof I was cheating? I'd want your head on a platter. I'd help her bury you, he admitted, his voice breaking as tears filled his eyes. What about Alex and Maya? How are they handling it? They're talking more with their cousins than with Emma or me. They seem to be holding up, but they're angry with Carla. I've told them they need to talk to her, but I don't know if they have. I'm not getting involved in this, John said quietly. I thought you were overreacting to gossip. He paused before adding, if you have irrefutable proof, I accept it. My first priority is the kids. And I'll help Carla with her physical needs. I don't excuse her behavior, but I understand your position. Stay in touch, Ben. He walked out, his shoulders slumped. I felt sorrier for him than for Carla. Wow, Emma said when I got home. So, he knows his daughter isn't as virtuous as he thought. We need to tell Mom and Dad soon. How about tomorrow night after your shift? We don't want them to be upset that we kept them in the dark. I agreed. The meeting wasn't pleasant. My father only asked if I had proof, and I assured him I did. Like Dr. Prejean, he was more concerned about the kids than about us, which I understood. In our culture, children came first. Adults dealt with their own consequences, but children were protected while being informed so they could learn from the experience. I received no additional emails from my mysterious benefactor, which was fine. I already had 4 explicit videos of Carla and Tom, along with audio recordings that confirmed their long-term affair. I didn't need more proof. Carla hadn't just betrayed me, she had financially defrauded the family. The mystery of how she'd saved enough to consider flying to the Cayman Islands infuriated me. She wasn't just a cheater, she was a thief. Jake began investigating their accounts using their social security numbers to ensure we could subpoena statements if necessary. Some questions were answered the following Wednesday when we met with Carla, Tom, and their lawyer to list total assets. A court-appointed financial arbitrator reviewed all the paperwork. I provided my annual salary, and Carla's pay stub confirmed she earned $5,000 a month. My income varied with overtime, but on average, we made similar amounts. This means minimal alimony, even without the prenup and proof of infidelity, Jake explained. On Monday, the arbitrator requested income tax returns for the past few years. I found ours in the desk, while Emma had to retrieve copies from her accountant. Emma was frustrated that Tom hadn't filed their tax returns with their other documents. She knew he earned about $80,000 compared to her $50,000, and she was relieved when Jake explained she'd likely get a sizable maintenance payment. Boudreaux entered the conference room with a sullen Tom and Carla trailing behind him. Carla glared at me, her silent anger catching me off guard. I had expected some sort of apology, but she remained quiet, likely following Boudreaux's advice. Tom, on the other hand, struggled to keep a neutral expression, his discomfort evident. The court officer introduced himself and his assistant, who began taking notes and keeping an electronic record of the meeting. Let's get started. Your attorneys have forms for you to sign, confirming that your statements today are true and may be admitted into evidence. Our goal is to compile a list of all assets and income for the judge to review. We won't discuss prenuptial agreements today. Regarding car valuations, we'll use the standard blue book. If a car your child drives is registered in your name, we can consider it separate from community property if both parties agree. Money will come later. Let's start with Mr. and Mrs. LeBlanc. We began listing automobiles, firearms, the boat, and household goods. This part went quickly, even Carla's jewelry wasn't a problem. I had it appraised, and its value exceeded that of my truck and firearms combined. Boudreaux tried to argue that the solar system on my house should be considered separately. He presented a document stating its value and depreciation. Jake reviewed it, made a few notes, and nodded. The 401k accounts were next on the list. Why are those included? I asked, thinking they should be excluded. They count since you've been married over 10 years, Jake explained. But in your case, the values are similar, so it won't affect much. We then moved on to the checking and savings accounts. Jake submitted the statements showing I had withdrawn 80% of the funds. Emma had done the same with her accounts shared with Tom. This is straightforward, said the arbitrator. Then he turned to Carla's attorney. Mr. Boudreaux, there's a significant discrepancy between Mrs. LeBlanc's salary estimate and her tax returns for the last 2 years. Tom visibly tensed. I've estimated your income at $60,000 annually, I explained, multiplying Carla's monthly salary by 12. Yes, but for the past 2 years, Mrs. LeBlanc reported an income of $140,000 annually, the arbitrator said. My stunned, what the hell, made the assistant frown. Didn't you review your tax returns? He asked. I shook my head. Carla and Tom started using a new accountant and handled our taxes electronically. I just glanced at the refund we received. Carla flushed purple as the arbitrator continued. Her salary includes $80,000 in bonuses each year, Mr. LeBlanc. And Mr. Dubois received $110,000 in bonuses annually. Emma frowned. That's an extra $80,000 net per year for each of them, $160,000 combined. So where's the money, Carla? Carla bristled. Is that why you went to the Cayman Islands last Friday? To hide it? How did you find out? Carla snapped, her composure faltering. Are you following me? I didn't need to, I replied coolly. You did it yourself. Both you and Emma insisted the kids install phone locator apps. Jason and Maya used it to track you when you didn't answer them on Friday. They saw your location vanish near the coast, which means you were likely in the Caymans. Carla and Tom looked horrified. They checked again Monday and saw you weren't home but in Baton Rouge. I'm guessing you were transferring money into new accounts, I added. Jake stepped in. Boudreaux, we can subpoena account statements to confirm those balances. Hiding assets offshore to avoid dividing them is a felony. Your clients flew to the Caymans right after hiring you. This will not go unnoticed. Carla began to cry, and even Tom looked pale. Boudreaux's face flushed as he tried to deny any wrongdoing. I didn't advise them to do anything illegal, Boudreaux said firmly, glancing at the recorder and the assistant typing away. Emma asked Jake, can we get them to return the money? Jake nodded. We'll get your share eventually. If the accounts are proven to exist, we can garnish paychecks or confiscate assets. Once infidelity is confirmed in court, 80% of those funds will be yours. There's no money left. Carla exclaimed, cutting off Tom's attempt to silence her. It disappeared when we tried to transfer it. What? I asked incredulously. She explained, we tried to transfer the money electronically from the bank in Grand Cayman, but the transfer was denied. When we got to Baton Rouge to check, the online statement showed the transfer had been processed, but there were no routing or account details. Provide me with the bank information for the Baton Rouge account, and I'll investigate, the arbitrator said. I can expedite the results and include them in the court documents. Tom and Carla left the room, looking dejected. As Emma and I gathered our things, she muttered, where could the money have gone? I shrugged, equally baffled. Maybe someone else got to it first. Our case was expedited, likely because Carla and Tom had pressured Boudreaux to move things along. They spent a week at the Holiday Inn before relocating to the apartment on Victoria Street. The thought of them in their love nest, likely juggling cash flow issues and Boudreaux's fees, amused me. All 5 kids insisted on attending the hearing, and I agreed, as they were deeply affected by the divorce. Jake prepared us for what to expect, explaining that Judge Goudry ran his courtroom in a semi-formal manner. When the hearing began, Jake, Emma, and I sat to Boudreaux's left, while Tom and Carla sat across from us. The kids were seated in the gallery. Following Jake's lead, we stood as Judge Goudry entered the room. Sit, he instructed, gesturing for everyone to be seated. I handle family cases in a semi-formal setting. Speak when I address you, and raise your hand if you wish to be heard. Be respectful, and don't piss me off. If you do, I'll throw you out. Understood? The kids stifled their laughter at the judge's bluntness. Judge Goudry continued, I've reviewed the details of both cases. Normally, we'd handle these as separate matters, but given the overlap in evidence and the parties involved, I'll address them together. Louisiana law doesn't consider infidelity alone as grounds for divorce, but in this case, prenuptial agreements significantly influence property distribution if infidelity is proven. We'll start with the discrepancies regarding monetary assets. Allegations of hiding funds have been raised. My investigation shows that Mrs. LeBlanc and Mr. Dubois held bank accounts in Baton Rouge with balances of $120,000 and $160,000, respectively. The entire balances were transferred the Monday before the divorce petitions were filed. The transfers were made using correct passwords and security questions, indicating they were executed by Mrs. LeBlanc and Mr. Dubois or someone authorized by them. Further investigation revealed that the money was split evenly among 5 accounts belonging to their children, Jason and Maya LeBlanc, and Robert, Ryan, and Anna Dubois. These transfers are legal under the Uniform Gifts to Minors Act. The accounts were established years ago, likely for college funds or inheritance purposes in the event of a parent's death. I sat in stunned silence. Why was Carla making such a fuss if the money had been given to our kids? Judge Goudry continued, this action shows a degree of responsibility, if not remorse, on the part of the parents. Such deposits are non-refundable unless fraud is proven. Does anyone here have evidence of fraud? Though I would have preferred to recover my 80%, knowing the money had been set aside for the kids was satisfying. Across the table, Carla and Tom looked shocked, likely thinking we had outmaneuvered them. No, Your Honor, we all replied when he asked again about evidence of fraud. Tom and Carla's apparent terror at the thought of additional charges for hiding money offshore kept them silent. The next issue, Judge Goudry announced, is the custody of the minor children. Maya raised her hand. Yes, Your Honor, she said. I read that children 15 and older can choose which parent to live with. In some states, yes, the judge replied. In Louisiana, I consider the children's preferences, but I'll need to speak with them privately. Maya stood up. I don't need to talk privately. My mom cheated on my dad and destroyed our family. I want to live with my dad. Jason stood next, echoing his sister's words. I feel the same way. Anna, Ryan, and Robert also stood, stating they wanted to live with their mother, citing Tom's betrayal as their reason. Under the table, I felt Emma's hand squeeze mine as my heart raced. I'll consider your input, the judge said, a slight smile tugging at his lips. But it hasn't yet been established that there was, as you put it, betrayal. Maya raised her hand again. I also read that 16-year-olds can petition the court for emancipation, and 17-year-olds can leave home without needing a petition. The judge nodded. That's correct. The rule about 17-year-olds is an old law allowing young men to enlist in the military without parental consent. For 16-year-olds to petition for emancipation, they must prove they can support themselves. Maya nodded. I have a college fund with $56,000 added to it, plus contributions from my parents and grandparents. Anna stood up. I have a similar fund. Ryan smirked. Same here. We could rent a nice place together. Jason and Robert stood next, both claiming their combined funds could easily support all 5 of them. Judge Goudry raised an eyebrow. Let me guess. If I don't grant your requests, you'll petition for emancipation or leave on your own. 5 heads nodded in unison. Sit down, he commanded, stifling a laugh. I'll consider your statements. He then turned to Jake. There's an allegation of infidelity, which directly impacts the prenuptial agreements and property distribution. I'll now hear the evidence. Jake stood, ready to present our case. Your Honor, I have here pictures of Tom Dubois and Carla LeBlanc together, Jake said, passing the images to the judge. Boudreaux immediately objected. Anyone can alter photos. I've got a picture of me shaking hands with the president and another of us playing golf, both fake, made by my son as a joke. Defense counsel hasn't verified the source of this evidence. Judge Goudry turned to Jake, then to Emma and me. Jake nodded for me to respond. Your Honor, I said, these images came from an anonymous source. I received several video and audio files and took these screenshots from one of the videos. I have the full video on a DVD and thumb drive for review. I glanced at Carla and Tom. Their faces were pale and tense, they shook their heads as if trying to deny what was happening. Judge Goudry noted their reaction, his eyes narrowing as their discomfort grew more apparent. Do I need to reproduce the file Mr. LeBlanc provided, the judge asked, or do all parties agree that infidelity occurred? Boudreaux hesitated, then looked at Carla and Tom, who were whispering anxiously. Your Honor, Boudreaux stammered, could I have a moment with my clients? The judge waved his hand impatiently. Boudreaux leaned in to confer with Carla and Tom, who looked visibly panicked. After a minute, he sighed heavily and turned back to the judge. We agree with the plaintiff's claims, Your Honor, Boudreaux said reluctantly. In that case, Judge Goudry declared, I will announce my ruling. Since infidelity has been acknowledged, the prenuptial agreements will be enforced in both cases. Emma and I exchanged a glance of relief. The plaintiffs, Ben LeBlanc and Emma Dubois, are awarded 80% of the community property as outlined in the agreements, the judge continued. I suggest you work out the specifics of property distribution with your attorneys to avoid further court involvement. For custodial arrangements, I grant Ben LeBlanc full custody of Jason and Maya LeBlanc, and Emma Dubois custody of Anna, Ryan, and Robert Dubois, as requested. The non-custodial parents will have full visitation rights. Legally, the divorces will be finalized in 6 months. Regarding spousal support, given the increased incomes, Carla will pay $1,000 a month to Mr. LeBlanc, and Tom will pay $2,000 a month to Ms. Dubois for the next 3 years. Each dependent child will also receive $500 a month until they turn 18. Jake whispered, "These payments are minimal. We could appeal for more." I shook my head. "Let's not drag this out. I'm satisfied." Emma nodded in agreement. "Very well," the judge concluded. "This hearing is adjourned." As we left the courtroom, Jake promised to schedule a meeting to discuss the division of assets. I told the kids to head home, change, and prepare for a family meeting. Emma and I walked to the back of the courtroom where my father was waiting. "So, when did you figure it out, Dad?" I asked. Emma looked confused. "It hit me when Maya and Anna made those comments about the video," I said to Emma. The username, PissedOff999, sounded too familiar. The kids made it up. Emma's mouth dropped open. "No," Dad said. "I figured it out a few days ago when I saw an old credit card bill. Jason and Rob asked me a couple of months ago for a credit card to plan something special for your anniversary. They promised to pay back $500. The statement showed a purchase from an electronics company. At first, I didn't think much of it. But when I called the company, they said the kids bought cell phone bugs. The kids spent $500 on spy devices." I asked, stunned. "Yep," Dad replied. "Apparently, they're not cheap. I don't know where they got the cameras, though." He followed me home, eager to learn more. The kids were waiting in the living room when we arrived. They fell silent as Emma and I entered. "Let's move this to the kitchen," I said. Emma grabbed 3 beers from the fridge, handing one to Dad and me. Jason and Rob held out their hands, grinning mischievously. "You might be old enough to play spies, but you're not old enough to drink," I said. They shrugged, unbothered. "Okay," I said, sitting down. "Let's start at the beginning. Who wants to go first?" Deirdre raised her hand. "It started when Cindy and I stopped by my mom's office, and she wasn't there. Neither was Uncle Tom. This was around the time phase 2 of the COVID lockdown began. We wanted money for a movie, but the receptionist said they'd both left hours ago. It was well past lunch, so we tracked them using the locator app Mom made us install. It showed they were at a strange address. We went there and saw Uncle Tom's car in the parking lot. We waited and eventually saw them walk out, holding hands and smiling. That got us thinking," Deirdre continued, "so we started tracking their movements. Over the next few days, they kept going to the same place. Sometimes late at night, sometimes after work. We told Jason and Rob. Rob jumped in. We researched online and found bugs you can install on cell phones using an app. It works like a continuous phone call in the background. You can hear everything around the phone. We talked Grandpa into letting us use his credit card to buy the bugs. Sorry we lied about what they were for. Installing the bugs was easy," Jason said. "We downloaded the app and took turns listening to their conversations. We recorded anything interesting so we could share it later. That's how we ended up with the audio recordings," Jason explained. "But how did you get the video? And how did you figure out which apartment they were using?" I asked, leaning forward. "We looked at their keys," Deirdre said. Both Mom and Uncle Tom had a key labeled 201. That's not their office number, so Jason copied Mom's key. We went into the apartment a couple of times to check it out and decided we needed cameras. So, we bought a few and a small transmitter, Dave chimed in excitedly. It was pretty cool tech. He didn't seem to notice the weight of what he was describing, the end of 2 marriages and the fracturing of 2 families. At least Emma and I were getting some answers. The cameras were motion sensitive, so they didn't use up too many batteries, Dave continued. We hid the receiver under the couch. It transmitted everything from the cameras to another receiver we set up. We recorded everything. So, you got video of Carla and Tom. I spoke carefully, glancing at the kids around the table. They were still my kids, my nieces, and nephews. I had to tread lightly to avoid damaging our relationship. But there was another issue that needed addressing, the money. Deirdre, you said something earlier about realizing your mom was gone. I asked. Yeah, Dad, she replied. When Cindy and I first looked at that apartment, we saw Mom wasn't just gone for an hour, she was gone from the way our family used to be. She had clothes there. Some of the outfits I recognized. There was a makeup kit, towels, washcloths. We knew what they were doing. They'd work out, clean up, and then come home to you and Aunt Emma like nothing had happened. It wasn't just cheating on you and Aunt Emma, they were cheating on us, too. And the money? Emma asked, her voice tight. The secret accounts were kind of a side discovery, Cindy said. When we were snooping around the apartment, we found some bank papers and instructions for online access. It took a while to figure it out, but we got there. Later, we peeked around Dad and Aunt Carla's offices. A couple of times, the receptionist let us in to wait for them. We looked through folders and found one in the bottom drawer of Dad's desk with some applications. Then we found more papers in Aunt Carla's office. She had a little notebook in her purse with passwords and stuff. It didn't say, secret bank account, Deirdre added, but the password was really different, more complicated than her usual ones. It worked. Jason leaned in, taking over. Once we realized they were hiding something, we got really angry. We thought they might be dealing drugs or embezzling. Dave came up with the idea to move the money into our accounts. Dave blushed. I just thought, why let them keep it? They'd probably blow it all. We didn't like the idea of them getting half the money in the divorce either. You used the accounts Grandpa set up for you? I asked. Yeah, Dave admitted. We figured we were minors and it was technically their money, so it wouldn't be a big deal if anyone found out. If we'd known about the 80-20 split, we might have done it differently. It actually worked out better this way, Deirdre said, shrugging. And the videos and audio files? I asked, looking at them all. That was the hardest part, Jason admitted quietly. We were so mad at Mom and Uncle Tom for what they were doing to all of us. We didn't want to hurt you or Aunt Emma, but we felt helpless. That's why we sent you the first video. We tried to get you to visit Grandpa, Rob added. We thought if you got angry enough, maybe you'd figure it out and tell Aunt Emma. We didn't want it to get worse. You moved the money and sent the videos because you were angry, I said, trying to piece it together. Yeah, Cindy said, her voice soft. We figured they cheated us, so it was fair to take it back. I glanced at Emma, whose face had been a mix of amazement and disbelief the entire time. I hope you kids never get mad at me or Aunt Emma, I said with a wry smile. Deirdre grinned. You'll never have to worry, Dad. You'd never let us down. One thing I don't get, my dad said, leaning in. You used my credit card for the cell phone bugs, they were expensive. But where did you get the money for the cameras? Those cost about $500 each, especially ones with full video, sound, and motion detectors. Jason and Rob exchanged a look. We got that money, from them. We got 5 cameras, Jason replied. Plus another $500 each for the hidden transmitter that sent signals to a receiver we hooked up to Deirdre's computer. That's $3,500 total, plus shipping. But we can return them for half the money back if they're undamaged. We already pulled all the cameras and the transmitter. We probably lost the cell phone bugs, though. And the credit card? I asked, suspicious. "We used your Visa card," Jason said casually. "I don't have a Visa card," I said, narrowing my eyes. "We do now," Jason admitted. "I applied for it and forged your signature." At least he had the decency to say it outright without looking guilty. "It has a $10,000 limit," Deirdre added. "We bring in the mail every day, so hiding it wasn't hard. Cindy and I set up the email account, pissed off $9.99, she continued. Rob came up with the name. He said what Mom and Uncle Tom did made him furious. The kids exchanged proud smiles, noting how impressed Emma, Dad, and I were by their ingenuity. "So the bugs in the cell phones are still active?" I asked. Dave nodded eagerly. "Yep. As long as the cell phone batteries are charged, they work. Thanks to those and the phone locator app, we know where they are and what they're doing at all times." Dave was thrilled to see he wasn't in trouble. "If one of them is on a call, we can hear it. It's voice-activated, but mostly it's car sounds and boring business talk. We went through the files and flagged anything interesting. I demanded access to the audio recordings. With them, Emma and I had the upper hand at the property division meeting. Carla, desperate to get her jewelry back, conceded most of the cash and all the housewares. We agreed to a few of their requests, but not without making them squirm. Emma shocked everyone but me when she suggested they parade across town wearing signs on their heads that read, 'We cheated on our spouses.' The alternative? Appealing the alimony and child support amounts." Boudreaux's eyes nearly popped out of his head at that threat. "We overheard him telling Carla and Tom they got off easy on child support and warning them we might still appeal. In the end, Emma recanted the walk of shame threat but made them apologize, on their knees. 2 months later, something neither Emma nor I had anything to do with, at least directly, happened. The insurance company Carla and Tom worked for discovered Tom had used company funds to rent the apartment for their affair. Rumors about why Carla received such high premiums over the past 2 years and why Tom received disproportionately large bonuses were already swirling. When the truth came out, both were fired. The company kept the scandal quiet to avoid bad publicity, and none of the videos ever made it online. Emma and I joked over beers about how fun it might have been to turn them into internet stars, but the kids vetoed the idea. They didn't want to deal with the public humiliation themselves, and we respected their wishes. Carla and Tom now live in New Orleans, working for a small shipping company. Since leaving town, they rarely visit or call the kids. From what I hear, they're struggling to keep up with child support and alimony payments. I wish them well. Well, maybe not.